All right, welcome back to the roast. Well, back or for the first time. If this is your first time, welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Roast It Yourself podcast brought to you by Coffee Bean Corral and Current Crop Roasting Shop.
Mhm.
I'm Stephen Burnett with Coffee Bean Corral in Jackson, Mississippi. And with me is Catherine Mansell, certified Q grader and director of Current Crop Roasting Shop in New Orleans, Louisiana. Catherine, how are you today?
Things are good today. Anytime I can have my dogs with me somewhere, it's always a good day.
That is fantastic. I just recognized something. We mentioned people that just showed up here. Like
Uh-huh.
maybe you had a friend invite you to listen to this podcast, or they shared it on their social media. You want to get into roasting. We didn't say anything about this. You have 25 other episodes, previous episodes to
It's
this,
true.
that get an increasingly terrible quality as you go back in time. Hopefully, we will actually have a legit setup one day. But you should go listen to all of them, and because it's very helpful if you want to learn coffee roasting, if you have questions. You can go see what others have asked. And if you have questions of your own now, it's a great time to send them to us. You can do
Yes.
that by sending questions about coffee, coffee roasting, coffee tasting, enjoying coffee, which is, I think, the most important thing,
Mhm.
to questions at riypod.com. That's questions at riypod.com. You'll get a nice shout out from us, just like this next guy is. I forgot his
Dan.
name. Dan?
It's Dan.
It was Dan.
It's Dan.
Dan P. Just like Dan P, you will get a nice shout out from us and you'll get your question answered. Now, without any further ado, we've got this question here from Dan P, who writes, Hi, Catherine and Stephen. Hello, Dan.
Hi.
I've just started home roasting with a fresh roast SR 540. Congratulations.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Congrats.
It's a great machine to start out on.
Mhm.
It's a great machine to just use because it's awesome.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And I have a question about flavor profiles. If two people roast beans from the same source to the same roast level, will the flavor be the same?
Mm.
Or can different flavors be achieved at a specific roast level based on the manipulation of temperature and time? Thanks. Love your podcast, Dan P. And before I put this question to you, Catherine, I
Mhm.
want to like raise the stakes a little bit.
Mm.
Okay. So he's asked about specifically like, the same coffee from the same source. I want to say same crop.
Yeah.
I want to say same process. I want to say out of the same bag, even.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So same exact bag.
Yeah.
Will they be the same if they're roasted to the same roast level, or can they be different?
If both of you are using the same guide, turning your roaster, manipulating your roaster at the same time, doing the same thing, the flavor could be the same. Yes. But can different flavors be achieved my by manipulating the temperature and the time? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes. When we first opened in New Orleans, we had different guides for different roast levels. It did get to be incredibly confusing, so we went back to the original
Hmm.
guide. But if you use the light roast guide
Hmm.
and I use the regular guide, we're roasting the same bean, everything is exactly the same. They will taste different. Uh,
Hmm.
because the regular guide is just a low and slow approach to roasting coffee, and that's not a great approach for every coffee,
Right.
but it's a good place to start. So if I'm going low and slow, and you're hitting with high heat,
Hmm.
that flavor profile is going to change. Most of the time, hitting it with high heat and having that shorter profile will increase the acidity.
Right.
So lots of things can be manipulated to completely change the flavors that will come
Oh
out to
yeah,
the cup.
even if they are exactly the same
Mm.
color, if they look identical on the outside,
Yeah.
even if they're the same roast level, if you grind them up and look at, I mean, what you do, which is why when professional roasters, it takes a lot of time. We've done a question on this in a previous episode,
Hmm.
but when professional roasters go in to create a profile, they really take their time with it, and they
Yeah.
don't just say, "Oh, that's a medium." They say at this many minutes we put the gas on 30%, and we decrease the drum rotation or increase or decrease
Hmm.
the fan the airflow through. Like they have it very very specific because they know just getting to a certain roast level isn't nearly the whole story.
Yeah.
And I want to throw another wrench into this whole operation, because if you did get two batches of coffee through the same roaster. So they came out of the machine at the same time.
Hmm.
And you tried one of them the next day, and you tried another one a week or two later.
Mm.
they'll be different.
Yeah.
If you try them right out and you use a different ratio in your brewing, or you have a coarser grind
Yeah.
on one batch and a little bit finer on the other batch, it will taste different. In other words, there are so many variables
Yeah.
that you can achieve with coffee. When I get emails from people like, I roasted this coffee and it wasn't good, I just have so many questions
Yeah.
because that could be anything. It could
Yeah.
be the brew, it could be the grind, it could be you didn't wait long enough, it could be you waited too long. There's
Mhm.
so many things that can affect the flavor and in a dramatic way.
Yeah. And when I first got into roasting coffee, what I would do is try pause. Sorry if my
Pause
cat's
for the
here.
pause. There you
Yes.
go.
So sorry.
If you don't like dogs, you won't like Coffee Bean Corral. That's that's just true.
Sure. Um, so when I first got into roasting coffee, I really didn't understand what people said or what people were asking me about building profiles.
Mm.
So I would roast coffee just right to the end of that first crack, give it a minute or a minute and a half to develop a little bit, and then pull it. And I would consistently use coffees that roasted well in that way.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't manipulate anything. I wouldn't try to change up the profile or increase or decrease sweetness or acidity. I would just go with this is the guide that I know how to use.
Mhm.
This is the bean that is fantastic if
Yeah.
you use that guide. And I really stayed away from a lot of other, a little bit more difficult coffees to roast and really stuck with the ones that tasted great with this very basic
Right.
roast profile. And that's what I stayed on for a while. And then I got into, well, why am I muting the acidity? This
Mhm.
coffee is supposed to have acidity. When I've cupped it before, it's had really nice acidity. What am I doing wrong?
Mhm.
And that's when I'm asking questions from people who, have a roasting business. And I would
Mhm.
say,
Right.
how do I get my acidity back? And they would say, well, you got to shorten this phase. You have to, increase the heat that you're putting onto the roast. So there were so many things that came into it that I was kind of nervous about just because I didn't have as much information as I wanted to have to make
Right.
a good decision and started seeking outside information.
Well, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with learning a profile and then fitting coffees to that
Yeah.
profile. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The coffee that you were making was no doubt better than anything you could have gotten at the grocery store.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so what we have when we get into home roasting coffee, roasting ourselves, roast it yourself. What we get when we get into that is we get access to just the best coffee you've ever had, and
Mhm.
then, oh, by the way, you are at the bottom of a very long like staircase and
Yeah.
journey, and you can go really really far and get really really good
Mhm.
at bringing out all of the potential
Yeah.
from whatever coffee you're working with.
Yeah.
But just because you're not there yet doesn't mean what you're doing isn't great and isn't
Right.
way better than what you'd be doing otherwise.
Mhm.
And especially, Dan, if you're just starting out, like, yes, look into the profiling thing, but
Mhm.
I would say don't drive yourself crazy about it. I
Yeah.
would say get comfortable with the machine and get comfortable with the coffee. Enjoy it, experiment with it. But it is such a rabbit hole you can fall down and get lost almost
Yeah.
in some of this stuff. And we don't want this to become frustrating for people. We
No.
want it to be fun. We want it to be an adventure, and it
Yeah.
is. But I would just say it's a long one, and we're still on it, and we're still learning and doing things. We'll probably be doing something different with whatever profile we're working
Mhm.
on in 2 weeks from now than we are
Yeah.
today. So it definitely is a process like that. But yeah, it can be really really different. And so all the different variables, all the different things you can tweak with. If you're not liking something in your coffee, you can't create something that's not there
Yeah.
in the brewing, but you can hide something that is there in the brewing, right? And it's
Mhm.
very similar in the roasting as well. So
Yeah.
if you don't like what you're getting, make some tweaks. If you like it, give yourself a pat on the back and a gold star, and keep doing it and keep learning and keep growing. But that's my 2 cents. Anything else you want to add on that?
I ditto. I stuck with that that guide that got me the coffee that I enjoyed every day. And people would say, "Well, how did you do it? How did you do all these things?" And I would just say, "Oh no, this is what I'm doing. It's just these beans that are fantastic
Right.
that love this roast profile that
Right.
I'm doing." So I stuck with that for a long time, and I'll still stick with coffees that I know are going to do exactly what I want them to do and taste exactly how I want them to taste. And sometimes just take it easy.
Yeah. And I do want to say one more thing before we sign out, and that is that sometimes, and it's helpful to do this if you know for a fact that not every coffee roasts the same.
Mhm.
So sometimes people have a specific profile and they do the same thing, and it's like time and settings, and they don't look at the coffee while it's roasting. They
Yeah,
just do the same. Well, it's 5 minutes, so I'm going to make this adjustment. And they get a new coffee or they get a new crop of the same coffee, and it doesn't turn out and they think something's wrong with the coffee.
right.
And the truth is, you probably need to tweak your profile
Mhm.
if you're not getting the results that you want. So that's something to consider
Yeah,
when you're getting into all this stuff. This is not a static product thing. This is agricultural product,
yeah,
and so it's going to change and morph on you. So, but that all said, I think we covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. But
you did.
did we leave something out? Do you know?
I'm sure.
We did. We certainly did. And that's what you listeners are for. In addition to supplying us with the ammunition called questions that we get to use in this show,
Yeah,
you also get to fill in where we didn't answer those questions adequately.
yeah.
And we invite you to do that. Please hop in the comments and let us know. Please, I've seen on YouTube people answering each other's questions
Oh,
too,
I
which is
love
kind of
it.
cool. Hopping in
Yeah,
like, yeah, I agree with that.
yeah.
I like that. Let's do that. We need more of that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So we really appreciate y'all as a community, and we want to grow this community. And that means that we need you guys to share and like and subscribe and do all the things that every podcast and YouTube channel you've ever listened to has begged you to do.
Yeah,
We also need that, and it
yeah.
costs nothing.
That's
It
true.
doesn't cost anything. Just a little button, the little bell, the subscribe, all that, the like, little thumbs up. Costs $0. Helps us very much to get more people into the roasting community,
Yeah,
and the more the merrier. I always say.
yeah,
We could not do this without our audio video wizard Josh Sampmeyer and our graphic designer Jatavian Walker. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all
yeah.
you do. But dear listener, please remember to send any questions you have about coffee in general or coffee roasting in particular to questions@riypod.com. Otherwise, have a great day and happy roasting.
Thank y'all.